All right, welcome back, everyone, to Get the Net. Been a little bit, but we are coming back with a banger. We got Bob Izumi coming on tonight. Absolute childhood hero, Canadian icon, derby guy, all around beauty. Don't need to pump his tires. You know who he is. Definitely going to want to stick around for that. We got to touch on a few things from the Bassmaster Opens. We got to talk Lake Winnipeg greenbacks. Even I'm part of the pack on that front now. So plenty to talk about. Lots to catch up on. We're going to have lots of laughs. I'm sure Bob will have a few good stories for us. So stick around. We'll see you on the other side of this intro. Welcome to Get the Net, a fishing podcast that takes a deep dive into competitive events, fishing news, tips, tactics, and most importantly, interviews with some of the most interesting and in-tuned anglers from Canada to the central U.S. We're leaving no stone unturned to bring you the most raw and authentic dock talk. My name is Jamie Bruce. While my resume says bass, my frying pan says walleye. I'm no stranger to the multi-species realm. Whether you're puttering on tackle, driving the bus, cutting the grass, or killing time in a 9 to 5, we'll try to give you something in every episode to take with you on the water, or at the very least, bring you a few laughs. All right, thanks everyone for tuning in. Glad to be back in the saddle here. Been doing a few podcasts for Straycast for Into the Great Wide Opens. So, and that's been fun with Brad Leitner and Pat and all the guests we've had, and pretty much focused on the Bassmaster Opens. If you haven't been following along with that, check it out. It's on my platforms and it's on the Straycast channel as well. The first Open of the year kicked off down in Eufaula, Alabama. I think it took around 28 or 30 hour drive down there. Literally went from ice fishing in the Wendigo ice fishing tournament like 2 days before to looking at alligators in bays with a bait caster in my hand. So bit of a culture shock there. Glad to have the first one out of the way. The results really weren't what I was after, but it's a 9 tournament points race. I'm sitting in 86th out of the 175. They're doing it all, so just right in the middle of the pack, which, I mean, you're going to have those every year. If you can keep kind of your real bad ones to a minimum and make up with some good ones, you'll be sailing. I really wasn't too bummed about it. Like I said, it was just major culture shock. I knew going into it, like I've only been to 2 before. One was on smallmouth bass, one was on spotted bass. Both were super far away, but I knew I wasn't just going to wheel up to a southern largemouth lake and light them up. So, if that's the worst one of the year, then that's fine. Never did catch a limit on the second day. I had 14 pounds on the first day, and it ended up being an offshore whack fest. So there were a lot of haves and have-nots in that tournament, and man, I had a lot of things go against me. Not a big excuse guy. I kind of pride myself on being able to overcome that adversity and just being really resilient to a lot of things. So I'm not going to sit here and whine about everything that went wrong. I'm going to take my 9 fish that the lake gave me and carry on to the next one. Made her home safe, and there was a wind day cancellation, so I had 2 full nights of just driving. Just me in the truck, just driving. Got home, hopped on a plane to Toronto the next day, and yeah, you want to hallucinate without any kind of substance assistance, just stay up for 2 nights. I was seeing things like I was looking at dark spots on the road thinking there were bears coming at me, and it was not a good scene. Definitely need to set myself up a little bit better to not have to do that again. Like I said, there was a wind day cancellation and just kind of unique circumstances, so I'm going to be a little safer for the next one. I got some codes for the next one's coming up here in the next little while, but yeah, ready to get back down there for sure. And yeah, like I said, the initial shocks out of the system, and I think it's going to be good moving forward. But yeah, it was a weird deal. I got back, like I said, I had to leave town the second I got back. So once I got back from that, yard sailed all my stuff in the garage and still haven't really touched it yet. There's got a pretty busy existence here and plenty of things to do. So hopefully get into that in the next little bit and get a little more organized and fix a few things around the boat. But yeah, snuck out ice fishing. On Saturday, I had to go meet buddy Marcel, shoot some things for a couple new ice fishing rods that 13 Fishing has coming out. And yeah, I wish I could talk a little bit more about those because they're unreal. But went up to Lake Winnipeg for the first time. What an absolute ordeal that place is. I said to him, I was like, there are more people, that we drove past in the 15 kilometers we took our snow machines ice fishing than I've seen total. Like everyone I've seen ice fishing my entire life, it did not add up to as many people as were out there. It was unbelievable. There was that, and then just how big that lake is, how thick the ice is, and how wild those walleyes are. We were pretty focused heavy on filming and didn't really go wild on the fishing part. You kind of just fish to get what you need. It's not all about fishing. It's more about getting the job done on that front. But I mean, luckily the second one I hooked was the biggest walleye I've ever caught in my entire life through the ice. I didn't get a length or a girth on it. I don't go too crazy about that stuff, but when I grabbed that thing, I was like, yep, that's her. It was awesome. Ate a rip and wrap, like way deep. Good thing it's barbless in Manitoba. I was in like 12 feet of water, so it was just a mayhem battle. And new rods stood the test. And yeah, it was wild. But yeah, in typical ice fishing fashion, like you'll hear people gripe about breaking things ice fishing. It's just kind of the way of the road. And I thought I was a little bit over that. I don't go as wild anymore or as hard, and I really take care of my stuff and everything like that. But yeah, I get the trailer bearings all greased up, check the tire pressure, make sure everything's working, the lights and all that. It's a big run. It's like 3 hours each way for us, on a sled trailer. So get everything tuned up, go to Winnipeg, whatever, mess around for the day, go to Lake of the Woods Sports, all that stuff. And had dinner like on Regent, came out, and I saw my leaf spring on the trailer was broken. Right in half, just dangling in the parking lot. So yeah, right. It's just getting dark. We're just getting ready to wind down and go to the hotel and everything. And no, there I am in a damn Denny's parking lot, unloading my sled on the hard top and like yard sailing everything out of the truck. And we ended up having to put the sled back in the truck. And thank God for Two Rivers Boat Works, Mike Totoli. He was the first call anywhere in the region. He's got a good operation there, a real good guy. I'll link his stuff below if you are an idiot and bust stuff anywhere around Winnipeg like I do. So thanks, Mike, for getting that tuned up. And yeah, just typical ice fishing fashion. No matter what you do, it seems can't really get away from busting stuff. Broken plenty of things on the boat too, but just something about ice fishing. It just reaches out and breaks your back any chance you can. Before we get too deep into it, I got to touch on the sponsor front here first. I want to remind everyone, btfishing.com. Get in there, get you some smeltinators while you can. I've been teasing this all year. It's looking like conditions are ripe at the Bassmaster Classic down on the Tennessee River, Fort Loudon, Tellico. Our boy Gus, he's down there right now. Cooper Gallant, both heavy on the moping scene. You better believe if that smeltinator jig makes it onto the camera at some point over the weekend, you're not going to be able to get them for a while. So check out btfishing.com, load up on them. We've got a couple announcements to make on new retailers of those soon. But like I said, we can only spin them out so fast. So get your mitts on them because it very well could go down, especially if the weather stays cool like this. Going to be interesting to watch that. And had a ton of questions about the Powerhouse line of batteries. New lithium company I'm working with this year. They really have some innovative technology. There's tons of brands out there that all have the 12 volt 100 amp lithium batteries. Then really none of them are any different. They just slap a sticker on and whatever. They show up in a black box. They slap a red or a blue or whatever sticker on it, and that's the battery you get. But Powerhouse, they've got their own tech. The guys are really into fishing. We're gonna get RJ on here at some point and touch on him a little bit better than I can, but I got that 16 volt battery powering the graphs on the rig, and really like having that. Got the lithium cranking battery this year. It's got an emergency start button on it. Just tech that you don't really see. So they're on the forefront of that. I have a feeling you're going to really be seeing them up north as we go here. And you got some of the best live scopers in the world, like Milligan, running the 16 volt battery. So it ain't an accident. They've been selling tons of them. The word's kind of out. Definitely worth checking out at powerhouse.com. Like I said, we're going to be touching on that soon here in the next week or two on the show. Yeah, and a reminder to check out 13 Fishing. I talked about the meta series, got to put them to work. Blasted a bunch on Gunnersville on my way down to Eufaula on the 7.3 medium heavy bait caster. That's one of those rods that's just beauty for everything, but definitely withstood the test and was super nice. So keep an eye out for those meta series. They'll be on the shelves this spring here. New deal that's coming out. You're just seeing it teased in Canada. They've been promoting it in the US for a couple weeks now, and there'll be a big classic release about it, but it's the VMC red line hooks. I've been putting all my faith in them this year. I took most of the other hooks out of my boat that I've been using for years. Once you see something you know is quality, like she was pretty easy to make the switch, all high-end stuff, PT coated vanadium steel. I can tell you all the specs you want. As soon as you pick one up and touch it, you'll realize what I'm talking about. Or as soon as a fish goes anywhere near it, you'll see. So VMC Redline, keep your eyes out for those. And shout out to Sims. Down in Alabama, it was 30 degrees. I was hiding in a Sims sun shirt and the guide pants. I really like those a lot. Then I wheel her back up to Canada, and it's damn freezing up here, -20. And I pull out that extreme jacket. I used to make fun of guys for wearing puffy coats. Would joke that if they got anywhere near a bonfire, their whole jacket would disintegrate and all that. And never dreamed I'd be wearing one, but that thing is damn comfy and warm. So check out the extreme lineup from Sims if you're sick of freezing up here, and highly fashionable too, I will say myself. They got plenty of inventory at Lake of the Woods Sports in Kenora, Winnipeg, and online at sportsheadquarters.ca. And a reminder to check out the dried and tagged fish contest. If you're anywhere on the Wabigoon chain or planning on being there at all, this contest applies to winter and summer, but it's a tagged fish contest. Check out my YouTube page for a video we did there. Tagged up some walleye, some right close to town. There's a pile of money swimming around in that lake right now. I think it's upwards of 30 grand. You buy a ticket for $20. You catch one of the tagged fish. I think there's 23 to 25 at this point. That's a bunch. Catch one, follow the process, and you could win anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000. There's been fish caught by non-tag holders that have had to put them back and not made a damn nickel. So definitely want to grab one of those tags and grab them at Clark's Bait and Tackle, QSL, or the Chamber of Commerce in Dryden. Definitely worth a look. And even if you don't catch a tagged fish, she's damn good fishing around there. So worth a peek for sure, especially on that crappie front. And I got to shout out the Lund Pro V Bass right now. That boat gets a lot of love in videos and all over the place. I haven't talked about it a ton on here lately. It got blowing on day one of Eufaula, and it was pretty nice having the only deep V in the whole fleet. There were 3.5 foot waves, and I was just sitting on top. Literally, me and my co-angler were eating. He brought a little charcuterie board around, and we were just kind of kicked back, going 30 miles an hour, eating our charcuterie board, and comfy as can be while we're looking over and watching guys break their stuff and break their backs and racing the way in. So definitely worth a look. Check out WSL Sport for the Pro V Bass and any other Lund or other marine needs. And last but not least, reminder about Nordic Point Lodge. Check out nordicpointlodge.com. I talked to Will the other day. He's been bouncing around to sport shows and everything. And, he personally reached out a couple of times and said plenty of listeners of the podcast and viewers of the YouTube channel have been booking trips. So that's what we want to see. They've got a brand new setup there. They're building a new lodge as we speak. High-end equipment. It's going to be a really good place to be. So definitely do yourself a favor. Check that out. And before we bring on Bob here, I got to remind you, you're a business owner or looking to do a little bit of marketing, don't hesitate to reach out. We all know radio is pretty much dead at this point. Don't yard sell all your hard-earned marketing dollars there. You might be able to make something work. Try to think back, and if you've ever watched a YouTube video or listened to a podcast and have bought a product because you trust the person telling you about it, or it can go into a little bit more depth about it, just something to think about, instead of just kind of the blanket radio ad where someone might not actually know about the service or the product or anything like that. Seems like this is kind of the new way to go. Definitely the phone's on there, so don't hesitate, and to keep the show rocking a little bit longer too. So, all right, I'm going to quit bending your ear. We can't keep Bob Izumi waiting. He's in the powder room right now. We'll bring him on here and see what's going on. How you doing, Bob?
Doing good. How you doing, man? Okay.
Hey, don't worry. I go through every one of these with a fine-tooth comb because I always drop F-bombs and this, that, and the other thing.
I won't do
go
that.
Clean it up.
I'll try to keep it very, very family.
Well, we've already started, so I just have to go back and cut that out.
Okay. We'll start again.
Start again. Okay, well, before you came on, I kind of announced you as well, I didn't kind of. I'm your biggest fan, Bob. I'm not gonna lie. Saturday morning, real fishing show. That was what I was all about. Got to go fishing with you in 2014. And yeah, that was like dream day. So I am happy you showed up, and you're gonna have to excuse me if I'm tripping on my words or fanboying out a little bit.
Well, that's funny you say 2014. Yeah, I didn't realize that's that many years ago, Jamie. The one thing about as you get older, Ted Takasaki told me this once. We were ice fishing on Lake of the Woods, ironically up in your area years ago. We were talking about how time goes by fast. And he said to me, and his explanation was this: as you get older, every year is a smaller portion of your entire life, he said. And I said, oh, yeah. And he says, so every year goes by faster. And made sense to me, still makes sense to me, because I can't believe it's already been that many years since we went crappie fishing. And I would have said it was, 7, 8 years ago, but well, actually, what was it? How many years ago was it? It was about that.
9, yeah, it'd be around 9.
Yeah. Okay, I would have said about 5 or 6. Yeah. The pandemic's really got me messed up with all this COVID and everything for those years. I mean, that was almost like somebody just stopped the clock,
Yeah, I get that. Well, Ted's a smart guy. Leave it to a walleye guy to be that technical.
Well, and he kept trying to get me. I remember the same trip. He kept saying, hit your OnStar. And, it was back in the early years when OnStar just became available in GM products. And he said, here, OnStar. And we're in the middle of Lake of the Woods on one of the ice roads. He said, I want to see what the advisor tells you when you ask for directions and they see you're in the middle of a lake and they're in like South Carolina, one of the call centers, right? And I never did, but he really wanted to do that just to see what the OnStar service or technical advisor would tell you which way to turn.
Yeah, old bully.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. So, hey, now are you fishing all the Bassmaster Opens this year?
Yeah.
All of them?
All of them, all 9. I don't know what I'm getting myself into because I still have a full-time job and I'm the furthest guy away, but yeah.
So what are you going to do? Is there an official practice period for each of those now?
Yeah, you get 4.5 days.
Okay, so they do close it before that. So
they cut it off for a month. So all those kids that were going down there and camping for a month, that's out.
Now, what was that first tournament you fished when you started the Opens?
Cherokee. That was last year. So I tried to get into one division and I didn't.
How'd you do in that tournament?
I got 3rd.
That might be that one of those trophies behind you there.
Yeah, it's over there.
Yeah, when I was watching you and Alex, I saw it there, and it reminded me, and I was so happy to see you do very well at that tournament. I mean, that was unbelievable. You'd never been to that lake before, I'm assuming.
No.
And you figured it out on the fly, and that says something about both your angling prowess and also the fact that a lot of folks that may be watching this, when you run this podcast, it's going to tell them a lot about you, because these guys in the States, that's all they do is bass fish. You're fishing every species. You only have a short season to fish bass, when the water's open, unless you're ice fishing for them. And to go down there on one of those lakes, especially a lake like Cherokee, that they're not, those fish aren't easy to catch down there.
No.
And they get tons of pressure. Americans are freaks about their bass fishing. They love to bass fish. There's, you go into some regions of the U.S. and there's weekday tournaments and evening tournaments and tournaments for seniors. And I mean, there's bass tournament leagues like there are bowling leagues, for all walks of life. And you go down there and kick some butt. That's pretty good. That's awesome. And the fact that you're fishing the whole series. Now, how many guys are doing all of them?
Oh, it's a zoo. It's 175 boats in all 9. and then 225 in every tournament.
175 individual anglers
Are doing all
trying for
9
those spots on the Elite Series.
Yeah. There's 89 last year, 45 the year before.
And
so,
how many people qualify for the Elites at the end? How many get the top guys?
9.
So that's 9 out of, okay. So that's,
it's about 6%.
Yeah, about 6%. Yeah. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, at least there's 9. Like where did I finish? We already went down to Eufaula a couple weeks ago, and I was 104 out of 225, which
so
is it's
half.
Well, yeah, you beat 120 people and you're still a triple digit finish, but
yeah,
I feel like that's on the. I feel like you can have maybe 1, maybe 2 of those if you mix them with the top 10. But yeah, I already dug myself a little bit of a hole. But
well, I'll tell you one thing: if any of the viewers have never fished tournaments, they wouldn't understand it. But I know from a fact that it's a roller coaster ride. Playing that game, you can have some great turns, and you can have some real bad ones, and you can have some mediocre ones. And even though you outfished more than half of the field in that many boats, you'd say, oh, I had a mediocre tournament. But realistically, you think of how many other people you beat, and that's monumental. So it's tough. And I mean, when you're around folks that don't fish tournaments, and you say you got 10th place in a tournament, they go, oh yeah, it doesn't mean anything to them unless you win, right?
Right.
And so I always get a kick out of that, because winning is so hard. Now, did you win one of the big tournaments up there in your region?
Yeah, I've won. I don't want to big dog it, and I don't know how this ended up with you interviewing me, but
because I thought I was logging on that I wanted to hear a little bit about your expert before we get in. I got lots of crap I can talk about me, but as I say, there's 2 eyes in Izumi, me and myself. But I want to hear about you. So, did you win Francis or KBI?
Won KBI, the Bassmaster box, the Sonaros won, and then the bronze back. Those are the 120 boat tournaments on Lake of the Woods. So
I was looking in the background of when you were talking to Kessler, interviewing him, and I saw a few trophies there, and I didn't recognize what tournaments they were associated with. And
right,
a lot of plaques and people's names, I could tell on the background there, and I was going, okay, what year and where were they?
Yeah, that was. I had to give a lot of those back. I had a really good year and won 4 of them up here in 1 year.
Awesome.
All 3 of them were with my wife, and so you get all the big trophies when you win, and then you have to give them back, and if you don't win again, you don't get them. So. Right. So all the big thunders.
I guess I gotta ask, since we're talking here. Are you with your wife still?
Oh yeah.
Okay, good. I usually am not inappropriate, but this is a podcast. It's not like when I did.
No, that's a reasonable question. I fish a lot, and now I'm doing some Bassmaster trails, so that's a very very reasonable question.
Jamie, on the TV show, because I knew that it wouldn't be appropriate. But now that we're doing this podcast stuff nowadays, a lot of these, I feel that you can ask a few personal questions that you might not want to air on national TV. This way you just air it to the world, whoever wants to find your podcast. Right?
Yeah. There's far less viewers than there were on the real fishing show. So
yeah, but you know what?
Say whatever you want.
You never know when this stuff will surface now that it's being out there. But no, that's pretty amazing. So she obviously knows how to catch fish.
She's a good partner. She actually won one on her own. Her and I don't know if you remember Brian Gustafson, but her and his girlfriend fished a women's walleye tournament and won it.
When was that?
Last year. There's like 70 boats or something. Yeah, I was proud of them.
She's from down the road from where I am. I'm in Milton, and she's down the road. I think her roots are right.
Yeah. I can't remember the town, Drumbo or something. She'll be pumped up. Shout out Bree. Bree will be fired up now.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, I met her in Brian's store. In your area there. I don't know, maybe 4 years ago. I'm thinking 5 years ago, and It was pretty funny because, you know, we got talking and that, and then I found out she was from, you know, like within an hour where I live. And I was, and then another guy hears my voice in there. I think it was the same time. And he's from Mitchell's Bay, and he's up there doing some consulting work, and he's shopping in Gustafson's store, buying some stuff. And he's a friend of Derek Strub's.
Yeah.
And it was so funny. To him, he comes out of the aisle and says, "Bob, what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What are you doing here? I'm up here to tape, but why are you up here?" And he said, "Well, I'm working, you know." But yeah, it's a pretty small world, I'll tell you. It's
Yeah, well, you draw a pretty big crowd around you here. Like I said, that I remember the date back in 2014 when I went fishing with you. It's not something you forget. But you and I went into Safeway. You wanted some sandwiches or whatever. I was like, okay. And like the amount of people that stopped you was incredible. Like I don't know if we passed two, you know, it was every other person stopped you and you had a chat. And I remember watching, I was like, okay, this is, yeah, like you spent the time on everyone and, you know, shook everyone's hand, did the intro. And I'm like, man, this is like,
you know, funny thing about it, I'm very used to it, and I never knew that was part of doing a TV show, because the truth be known, when I started the show in the early 80s, I was gonna say early 2000s, in the early 80s, and I did it for 38 years before wrapping it up at the end of 2021. But I only started the TV show to support my tournament fishing addiction. And I've told this story many times, but it was, I was fishing tournaments for about 3 years full time, doing seminars and, you know, work for fishing companies and Mercury and stuff. And then I thought, well, I'm starving to death. I need to do something to, you know, supplement this fishing addiction and tournaments. So started the TV show, but I really had no idea that, you know, people would recognize you from it. I honestly didn't even think about it. It was strictly an ends to a means to fish tournaments. And it was the reason I did it for decades. And I actually had a plan after a few years of the TV show was, I'm going to get out of this in 20 years and go back to what I want to do and just fish tournaments. And I always fished tournaments my whole career. I mean, I always squeezed in about, I don't know, 13 to say 16 tournaments a year, which was never enough. And, you know, did the radio show, the magazine, the TV show, and all the projects we were involved in and conservation work and stuff. But it was always my addiction and still is to this day. I mean, that's why I'm asking you at the first of this talk about your tournament exploits, because I find it fascinating. I eat, drink, and sleep tournament fishing, and at 64, I still cannot get enough of it. I today, you know, I got some tackle in. Well, actually, not some. I got a couple of different packages in that I was rifling through, and some hard to get lures that I'm stocking up on, and some new baits that are just out. And I just can't get enough of the whole deal. And talking to a buddy from down Windsor way, and he's a stick on Lake St. Clair. Earlier today, Eric Hodgins, about tournaments down on that way, and he was telling me about a lure he designed, and some of the elite pros are onto it big time. And I should tell you about too.
You should.
It's an underspin, which is good for some of them tournaments you're fishing where the shad are and the you know, the bait fish bite's important. Eric's making a really cool underspin. Some very notable anglers that I'm sure a lot of your listeners and viewers have heard of are pretty freaked out about it, and it's pretty cool. And but you'll have to look it up, or I'll give you the info after. But it's Eric Hodgins. He's got a guide service on Lake St. Clair, and he's got a website and that. But I don't know if his lure. I think he's got a e-commerce site there too for his baits. But he'd sent me some of those today as well. I got those. Very cool looking, very unique too. But it's the fact that they run true and they're not rolling. And one very renowned Texas pro just smashed them on Rayburn with it, like a 9 and a bunch of other giants, and then a bunch. But that's a whole different story. But you know, it's funny how, you know, even at this age and after this many years, I'm always looking for a better mousetrap too. You know, it doesn't matter if it's lures, rods, reels, line. electronics, techniques, whatever it is. I'm always trying to better myself, because I always feel that if you don't, you're 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's just the fact that there's so many good anglers in these tournaments, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore, and all the guys I'm competing against are like yourself and younger and older and that, but not many of them are my age anymore. Most of them are half my age, and it's you got to keep up with it. I don't believe there's any magic lures, but I do believe that there's always something that's going to come out that's a little bit of a refinement of something we've already had. Yeah, like A-rigs were kind of cutting edge when they came out. They were big. They were already in the saltwater market, with bait fish attractors of things coming through the water. But the A-rigs applied to freshwater bass fishing was new. And I remember being at Gunnersville when that thing broke loose and Elias won that tournament.
Yeah.
And I remember Scott Martin weighing in, and he said there's 2 tournaments going on. The guys with the A-rigs and the rest of us.
Oh, yeah. Guys were making them out of coat hangers, and they were breaking wires on them, and they had them down to a couple wires. And
I couldn't get any. I was trying hard before I came from another tournament to that tournament. I think it's Kentucky Lake or something. I went straight to that tournament. I couldn't get any. And I know. I came from the Everstart Championship and was hoping to get some. And I think Corey Johnston, he had one of the guys of the Ranger crew, made him one out of wire, I think. Chris or Corey, I forget, one of them, and they were like leading the Everstart first thing with a homemade one. The guy just bent some wire up, he put some swim baits on, and it looked sort of like an 8-rig.
Yeah, you got to be ahead of the curve. That's that's a huge one. But like you said, it seems to be a lot of the changes are a lot more subtle now. But any little edge you can find, and yeah, like you said, you can't just be complacent and kick back and expect to compete. So it's cool to hear you're still on it. And
it's hard. It's like, we all spend way too much on tackle. And, the running joke is, if I die, my biggest worry in life, if I die, is that my wife sells all my fishing equipment for what I told her I paid for it. Everybody thinks I'm sponsored by a lot of companies, and I am. I've got great companies, and I've been with a lot of them for, some of them like Mercury here for over 40 years and Ranger for over 40. Columbia for gosh, couple decades, and it goes on and on. But I still buy a lot of tackle too. I'm always, want to keep that leg up, but even when I was a kid, Jamie, the weird thing was that I was always buying tackle. As a teenager, there would be ads in the fishing magazine where you'd send like $5 in your name and address, and they would send you a crankbait, like a man's crankbait or a Norman crankbait or whatever happened to be around in the late 70s when I was just a teenager. And I always was into that tackle stuff. And then I remember my dad used to take me to Detroit, and we'd go tackle shopping, some of the cool tackle stores there in the 70s. And then getting our first bass boat, me and another buddy from Blenheim, my hometown, we actually went partners on a 17-foot Glastron bass boat with an 85 horse, and that was like in 77. And
well, your dad started the first bass tournament, right, in Canada?
Yeah, that kind of really got things thrown for a loop. I think I was like around 17 maybe at the time, and 15 or 17. I'm not even sure, but he ran this first tournament ever in Canada, and it was draw for partner, like the Bassmaster Invitationals. Mm-hmm. And I drew a guy in a 14-foot aluminum boat with a tiller, and it hailed so hard we had to pull into Rondo Park on one of the canals, go under a picnic table and wait because it was just beating us to death, this big giant hail coming down. And I don't even know if I caught maybe one fish maybe in that day. I think I weighed in one largemouth or something and that. But this guy, Gary West, and I had a great time from Windsor. And that, without a doubt, got me hooked into the competitive bass fishing part of it. And from then on, I was just bass. And we fish walleye and pike and all that stuff growing up down there and, throughout my youth and into my adult years and that. But that bass tournament that he had when I was in my teens changed my life forever. But we still did, And I was laughing listening to Kessler talk about this on I think it was your original podcast about fishing as a kid. And
Mhm.
our dad used to take us as little kids to Rondo Bay in Erie at the foot of Lake Erie and Rondo Bay where they meet. There's a big channel. Myself, the neighborhood kids would pile into this Volkswagen, 9 of us. He'd take us there and we'd win. Everybody win a prize. And my brother would win the boys championship every year until he got too old. And when he turned 16, I think he couldn't fish it, but he won it like 3 years in a row. And then I won it after he couldn't win it. And then my sister Lynn and Georgie, everybody was winning. And all the neighborhood kids that rode with us, the farm kids would win. And it was so cool.
You need a trailer for all your loot to haul it behind that bog heading
The
home.
whole car was full of prizes. Like, you don't even like tackle boxes, rods, reels, cool stuff when you're a kid. And that without a doubt got us hooked in fishing because it taught us to fish even like the structure. And he'd say, don't cast way out in the channel, even though you might catch something. Cast just close right here to the break wall, fish the pilings, fish the structure. And he used to say, and I was little at the time, like if Wayne would have been 15, I would have been 9 years younger when I started doing these. So I was just a little, pint-sized kid. I know you're gonna say it too. Not much bigger now because I know how tall you are. But anyway, the weird thing is he said, you'll never catch a fish if your bait's not in the water. So he constantly was coaching, keeping your bait wet so your odds were up. And I didn't know it at the time, but those were things that stuck with you throughout your adult years about upping your success and putting the odds in your favor, obviously, by keeping your bait wet. Don't be screwing around. Keep it near areas where the fish are going to be in high percentage areas, and all that stuff I did seminars on forever were things I learned as a little tyke and not even knowing it then. And fast forward to here I am now. I'm back to where I want to be. I'm going to fish more tournaments, at least ones I want to fish. I mean, I've had a lot of people say, why don't you try to get on the elites or get back, fishing it used to be the FLW tour. Now it's the MLF thing and that.
Yeah.
And try to, get into those circuits and qualify. And if you would have said that to me 3 years ago, I would have said, I'm in. I'm going to go fish one of the national professional circuits or try to.
Yeah.
But it's weird how things change. Since then, I've got 2 grandkids in the last year and 4 months. I got a grandson, Tommy, and granddaughter from Darren, and one's from Kristen. Tommy's a year and 3 months old. And it's kind of changed my perspective a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit. I still want to cram a pile of tournaments in.
Yeah, you probably don't want to leave them all,
Well, that, and also, when I hear a lot of these young pros that are fishing the elites and that tell me, Bob, the only thing I don't like about my job is being on the road so much. And I'm laughing because I average 300 days a year on the road with the TV show, the tournaments, and all the associated appearances and other work I did for 38 years. So I already did that and I loved it. But now that I'm not on the road as much as I used to be, I'll still probably kick in, I don't know, 160 to 210 days a year on the road, probably now. But I can do as many as I want. There's nobody telling me you have to do this, you have to do that. And when we were doing the magazine and the TV and all the different things, radio and all that, you had to be out there doing stuff. And I still have to because I'm working for a lot of companies still, but it's, limited where I'm doing appearances and sales meetings and some consulting and a lot of real cool things that, I did some of which in the last 4 decades, but now I can do more of that and it's more controlled and that, but the tournament stuff, I just want to pick the ones that I want to fish. So if there's one on Champlain, it looks good. Maybe a Toyota series, I'll jump into that one if there's room, or Potomac or Mississippi River or whatever. I'm just going to look at all the different open style tournaments as well as, some of the local circuits here in Ontario and that, and put Sturgeon Bay in the mix and still cram a lot in, but kind of do the ones I know that I'm going to have fun in
Yeah.
Not do it as a grind, because I know what you're doing, even though, you're loving it. And I know I'd love it too, but I've been there, and, it is a grind when you're not doing good. I bet you
Yeah.
your drive home.
It's a long drive home.
Yeah.
It's the last one was 30 hours home with your thoughts.
Yes.
But luckily I didn't sleep at all. I just drove 2 nights, so I was hallucinating anyway, so I didn't
Did
have
you
any
drive
rational thoughts.
nonstop back?
Yeah, I mentioned this earlier, so I don't wanna squash it, but there was a wind day, so it got delayed a day, and I had to fly out of Winnipeg Monday morning, so after I weighed in at 6 o'clock on Saturday, I just drove for 2 nights. I got home, sprayed the salt off my boat, and, hopped on a flight to Toronto and then drove to Hamilton. But I was like, I didn't have time to dwell on my thoughts because my mind was just going it was going wild. I was out of control.
Yeah, I remember, driving back from tournaments that you're spinning, like, it's funny.
12, 15 hours was probably kind of the norm for you.
18. I usually
18.
capped at around 18 if I was
Okay,
by
that's a good
myself.
hump.
Yeah, I do. Like, I just come back from Florida on last week.
Mhm.
Me and a young buddy of mine, Will Coy, I've known him since he's in his teens. He's in his 40s now, but we did a last minute trip. I'd already been to Florida like a month ago, and I said to my wife, I said, I think I'm going to get some work done, because I got boats to rig and stuff to work on that has some stuff that has been put off for 3 decades, right? Literally.
Yeah,
So I got
I
to
can
finally get my
imagine.
life organized and that. So I said to her, I don't think I'll go back to Florida. I got to get some work done. And then didn't I get back from Florida, and I wasn't even back here a week, and I do spring fishing and boat show and some seminars and stuff. And I talked to Will, and I said, hey, Will, what do you think about Florida? And he said, yeah, I'm in. His truck and his Ranger, we ran down there. We're only gone for 7.5 days. We fished 4 days, caught over 500 bass in the pits, got 9 holes in Florida Gulf, and then did another 18 on Sunday on the way back in central Georgia golfing, because we both like golf too. And then got back at lunch on the Tuesday. I think we left Monday and we were home at noon on the following Tuesday. So
Wow.
it was it was a great road trip. I mean, I just took the rust off that had accumulated for 3 weeks of being back here in the north, and that. But no, it's 18's a good run for anybody. But I find that those coffee drinks you can get now. There's Starbucks double and triple energy, and there's Black Rifle's got an espresso one, and I find all those things have been coming in handy on those days where I'm just struggling a bit. And I'm talking about maybe once a month I might have one of those when I need it, when I'm driving. It's like somebody kicks you in the rear end when you drink one of those things.
Yeah.
I would never.
I just feel like those things are like, if they wake you up for that much, then like you got to pay for it at some point. Right?
Well, I don't think there's anything good in them for you, but I'm sure that
it's better than driving your truck and boat into the damn ditch.
Yeah, but I'm not really in a big hurry to get anywhere except back to weigh in when I'm fishing a tournament anyway. But it's funny how the highs and lows of tournament fishing are so hard on your brain, because you come off a good tournament, you feel like you won a lottery. It doesn't matter if you're 10th place out of 100 boats or you're first. You just feel great.
Mm-hmm.
You come back off a mediocre or a bad tournament, and it like everything's going through your mind, racing of what did I do wrong, what should I have done, and those type of things. And you try to right the ship by at least figuring out what you could have done, or learn from whoever won or some of the top 10 finishers what they did, and then take that with you at least as a learning curve. Because the worst tournaments are, and they don't happen often, but the worst, I'm talking about this part, not I believe me, I've had a lot of bad tournaments, but I'm going to tell you the worst tournaments are the ones you leave and you can't figure out what you did wrong, and you still couldn't figure it out after you learned what the winners did,
right?
Because you were doing something sort of similar to them, but they obviously found the winning fish and you didn't, right? And those are the tough ones, because you can't, it's hard to grasp how you kind of knew what the patterns were, and you thought you were on enough fish to do well, and you didn't. And and I'm not talking about mechanical, like if you lose fish and your mechanics are off, that's a different story, because that's another bummer that I think as tournament anglers we all have. And I remember one at Wheeler Lake in Alabama, I got 10th in it. It was one of the FLW tour opens or whatever they used to call them.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah,
that stat today.
yeah, and I should have won that tournament, but the rods I were using at that time had just come out, and they were stiff and fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was flipping around these shallow trees and bushes in this creek, and I had it all to myself. And I lost probably 9 or 10 sizable fish in the 3 or 4 days of that tournament. And had I landed half of those, I would have won it. If I landed all of those, I would have walked away with it. And it's it was funny, but the rods were just too stiff, and you'd set the hook, and I believe a too stiff a rod that's too fast. Some graphite rods are amazing. Other graphite rods, at least over the years, are too fast, where you set the hook and they bend and they do this. So it's almost like a bend like this real quick. And I think they're like an elastic band where they spring back a second, and it's almost like shoots the hook out. So you set the hook, but if it's not penetrated past the barb, it almost fires it back out again with that tension off, just like a bow and arrow string, right?
Right.
And those rods were just too fast for the application, and they were new and they were expensive, and I thought they'd be the cat's meow for what I was doing, flipping and pitching. But that particular rod was not good in that day, and that quite a few years back. But when I found one that was more applicable for the way I like to flip and pitch and how I set the hook, and everybody's different with this, but I finally found one that had a soft tip, and when you set the hook, it would always stay loaded. So even if the fish wasn't hooked really good, as long as you kept pressure on that fish, just like a crankbait rod, except this was a flipping rod, it kept that hook point in the fish, right?
Yeah.
And, as long as you kept pressure and kept that fish coming in, you could, either net it or swing it in the boat, or whatever the rules were in the tournament, or whatever you wanted to do it, if that was an open deal where you could use a net. But I guess now, how's your fish landing without a net? Do you like that?
Well, that's where my boat has actually been a big advantage. I've got the big Lund, and it's pedestal seat, so I have that whole area in the middle.
Yeah.
And so that helps. But what really helps, and when I was grabbing spotted bass and smallmouth, largemouth a couple of weeks ago are no problem. They just come up and pretty much die, and you grab them by the lip, and that's it. But the smallmouth and the spots that are going wild, the boat's got a flat side, so I just pin it into the boat, and then just take the other hand and go around and wrap it. And that's, I'm sure I'm going to lose a few, but I'm like, okay, this is an actual advantage at grabbing them. So it's been good. I haven't lost any. I know there's going to be some where I touch and lose at some point. But yeah, for now I haven't lost any landing them.
Yeah, you're right, because unlike a lot of the glass bass boats that go like this, it's pretty, vertical, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm watching these guys, like in their glass boats too. They have to get down and sit in the seat to land them. And if they go a little bit behind them or a little bit in front of them, that's it. I'm running around on the dance floor, and then I got a damn piece of plywood to pin them to almost.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, I never thought of that, because isn't it amazing how, bass, when you cup them under the belly, it sedates them, as long as, the pressure is on your hand, it's hard to, vertical if you're holding them like that. They're slippery, and it's hard to belly hold them if they're vertical. But when, they're sideways like this, how you can come. I watch a lot of, the live, Bassmaster and MLF, as I think a lot of us tournament fanatics do. And you see these guys, cupping the bass, and, you always go, that jerk bait or that crankbait hanging out of his face, if that fish just, quickly twitches, they're going to get hooked, And I haven't seen many guys get hooked on cameras, many as I thought I would,
Yeah, no, there's been some bad ones. KVD got a real bad one on a big, like a 10XD crankbait a few years ago. I remember watching that.
Did he
I remember a couple on gun. Yeah, another boat, one of his follower boats came and yanked it out. There's another one on Gunnersville where the guy had to fish all day. But yeah, not a ton for how many you get down and grab.
Yeah, it's
But
pretty interesting. Now,
if it's a big one, it's worth it. I'll take the hook in the hand.
yeah. No, I mean, I've been hooked everywhere and over the years. And usually if it's filming, I just grab pliers and just yank as hard as I can out because I don't want anybody to think I'm wussy or anything. But I guess, but I will say, I remember the Duck Mountains out in Manitoba. We were trout fishing, filming years ago. This little hook, tiny little trout hook, goes swinging in the wind and gets me right inside the ear. I mean, right inside, and I couldn't get the pliers out. So I went to the local hospital, and they just froze it and just got it out of there real quick. But it was pretty funny. Couldn't really get at it too easy. Yeah, it's and for all these folks that say fish feel pain, I don't know if they do, because how many times have you been hooked past a barb before?
Usually about 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
It's pretty bad. I'm getting good at the braid trick.
I've been hooked up. I probably had
maybe that's a little much, but once or twice a year for sure.
Yeah, I maybe had 6 or 8. I just passed the bar, but you pull them out, whether you use the line method and the sort of pressure against the shank or pliers or whatever, or push them through. It doesn't hurt really. Like if it's just in the skin and the meat, it doesn't really hurt. And so I don't know. A lot of the antis talk about how fish feel pain and that. I don't know if we don't really feel it just when it's in our skin. How are they going to feel what's in the skin of their mouth too? You know what I mean? I don't know. And so
yeah, I try not to think about it. I'm a little bit soft, so if I start thinking about that hook through the face, I might have to hang him up.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just plead ignorance on that one. So no pain. I'll go with that.
I don't think they feel pain in that because
well, you heard it here, folks. Bob Izumi, fish don't feel pain. We'll just put that one to bed right now.
Especially when we're not catching them, they don't feel any pain.
Well, Bob, I mentioned I was going back through your stats a little bit today. Always do a little bit of research on whoever's coming on, and there's tons about you out there. But I was interested in your tournament stats because I had known, back when Gussie did the FLW Tour Opens, I saw you'd made a cut in Florida, and I was like, oh, Bob Izumi's fishing these. But I looked and I didn't realize that you did the full tour in 2003. Like you went for it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point to bring up. And I'll tell you something about between the ears. Okay.
Yeah.
This has never been discussed ever in a podcast, in an article, or anything. Okay.
I like it.
That was a tough year with the production company, right? With the TV series and that we were, we still had a lot of sponsors and that, but we were heavily staffed, right? Back in those days. I mean, we had as many as 18 full-time staff in the heyday for the fishing business, which is pretty heavy for a Canadian company. I mean, companies like the In-Fisherman had big staffs in the heyday. And actually, that's another story. Al helped me get involved in the business full-time back in the very early 80s. But anyway, I said, I'm going to go fish that FLW tour. And I shouldn't have. And here's where it gets in your head, and it's bad mojo, bad momentum.
Yeah.
We were struggling that year. Financially, the company wasn't doing that good that year. And it wasn't a year, it was a year I shouldn't have left. I should have stayed and worked. In that, instead of taking off, every month for the first, 6 months or 8 months or whatever to go fish some tournaments or whatever, I should have been working more. And I still did all the stuff I had to do, which, was crazy back then because, with seminars and TV productions and magazine articles and on. I mean, it was a crazy busy year, but I went off and said, I'm fishing a mace. So the first tournament is Okeechobee. I was in the garage and it's not heated, and I was getting stuff ready the day before I left, right? And I worked till I don't know, like 1 or 2 in the morning getting stuff ready.
Yeah.
I can't remember when I left the house to go down there to practice, but I hooked up the boat and truck middle of winter, January, and I drove nonstop to Okeechobee. And I got in, I remember getting into Roland Martin's, resort there at 2 in the morning. And I completely exhausted, hadn't slept for a little bit. I slept at home, but I was so busy. It was like a fire drill trying to get all that junk together, right?
Yeah, you were 2 nights with no sleep then, really.
Yeah, and getting ready for a tournament, you don't leave it for one day to do.
No.
And I was out in that garage for like 12, 14 hours trying to find stuff that was applicable for Florida largemouth, not for walleye, lake trout, muskie, pike, fly fishing, trolling, all this stuff.
Yeah, and there was no overnight shipping back then either.
Yeah,
so you're bringing the farm.
all that stuff is in piles in the garage, and I'm trying to find, worms and flipping baits and lipless baits and topwater things that would be, applied to Okeechobee for largemouth in a weedy lake. And so I get down there, and I found a few fish here and there practicing, practiced for quite a few days. And I lost a lot of fish in that tournament. And the last day, I forget what place I got, but I know I wasn't that far out of the money in that tournament. And back then, the last check was a big check, right?
Yeah.
Several $1,000s. I didn't get that check, but the last day in that tournament, I got on a spinnerbait bite in this little bay back around the hyacinths and pads and stuff. And I lost like 5 big fish in a row back there on a spinnerbait. 2 jump off, 2 pull off, 1, just pulls off right below the boat. I mean, 5 good fish that would have just put me way up the standings. Not, I would say in the 20s, probably like 20 some odd place instead of like 50th or whatever I got. And or 60th or whatever. I didn't get a check. I left that tournament really pissed. I was mad because I knew that I could have easily cashed a nice check had I landed some of those fish the last day. Anyway, it just snowballed the rest of that season. It was the worst tournament season I've ever had in my entire career. Was my head into it? Not a bit. I was down there feeling guilty that I should be back working in the fishing business.
Yeah.
And so, it's a lot to be said about, when you go fishing tournaments, is to clear everything up here if you can and focus at the task on hand. And, when I look at, Chris and Corey Johnston, Gussie and Cooper, they're all young guys who are very focused on tournament fishing and from, different backgrounds, different means, but still have a common thread of focused on tournament fishing. All different times of their lives for the most part. I mean, Cooper, he's just a single guy living the dream, and he's a fish head, that's all he does, right? And he's good. So I looked at it, I look at it now and I say, yeah, I shouldn't have been fishing it. But that momentum carried throughout that season. I didn't cash a check that whole season. And I still laugh about it because I know why I didn't. I didn't feel like I should have been at any of them. Yet there I was. And that first one, the momentum I should have carried in cashing a check instead of not cashing the check, that mojo carried right through. Whereas if I would have cashed a check, I think my mind would have been a little better. Yeah. But, it is what it is. And hey, there's no excuses. But I will tell you, tournament fishing is as much between your ears as it is mechanics and decisions. And, it's those 3 things are important. And if they're all clicking and banging on all cylinders, you can be good in tournaments. But if one of those things is missing, chances are you're not going to have that good of a tournament, whether it's mechanics, losing fish, your mind is elsewhere, or it's just your decision making is lacking, and that I've always been a gambler in tournaments for the most part. I've played it safe in a few, but I figure I've won like about 80 some odd tournaments. And the other day I was adding up, and well over $1 million in prize winnings, and I've never fished full time except in the early 80s before a TV show for 3 years. But I didn't fish a lot of big ones because I didn't have enough money to fish them, right?
Right.
So that's just part-time tournament fishing. But but you know, all the boats I've won, I think it's in 7 bass boats and a Chevy truck and all kinds of stuff and cash and this and that. But you know, I always tell people, you know, win a million, I only spent 999,000 to it. No, not quite that much, but it was crazy how you know, tournament fishing is a funny game that we all like to play, like you and I anyway. Is I remember drawing an NHL player, Brian Marshman. And unfortunately, he just passed away last year. Brian was a business partner of my brother's in a business, and also, you know, a good acquaintance of myself. I'd golfed and fished with him over the years, and I remember drawing him at one of the Canadian Opens on Lake Erie years ago.
Yeah.
And he was in the prime of his NHL playing career at the time. But he liked tournament fishing. He was from down Belleville area, and he was a tournament fanatic back then, quite a few years ago. And we were having a rough day. And finally, we got into school of smallmouth, and it was one after another. And it was like 30 or 40 quick fish. And he's shaking as he's unhooking a fish and culling in the back. And I said, "Oh, you like this, eh?" And he goes, "Oh, I love it," you know. And he's just taking it all in, and just like a lot of us do when the emotions are running when you're catching. We got shooting the breeze that day, and he said, "You know, I'm going to tell you something about tournament fishing." And it's a funny analogy from an NHL professional, right? A veteran, you know, and that played the game. He said, "It's as grueling, if not more grueling in his mind, than playing professional hockey." And I said, "Oh, come on." I said, "You guys are in shape." He wouldn't even drink orange juice because there's too much sugar in it, right? Back then. I remember being having breakfast with him once, and he wouldn't touch orange juice. And then I since seen that in other NHL players I fish with too, that they won't, you know, touch things that aren't good for them. At least, you know, the guys that watch what they do and work out diligently and that. So anyway, he said, "We've got trainers. We got people look after our diets. We take a nap before the game if we want. We do practices that are this long. We play the game, which is this long. The rest of the time, you know, it's our time, and we got specialists for everything, right?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, tournament anglers, you guys get up at like 3:30 or 4 or 4:30 or 5 in the morning, whatever. You're on the water for, you know, hours on end. You're standing all day. You don't keep yourself hydrated much. You don't eat anything for the most part, or maybe a half a sandwich or whatever. You know, some guys eat more, some guys eat nothing." Um,
This outdoor content has been brought to you in part by Nordic Point Lodge. Located in northwestern Ontario, Nordic Point Lodge offers some of the finest fishing Canada has to offer. Whether you're looking for a family-friendly getaway or a corporate retreat, Nordic Point Lodge has you covered. They offer a luxury outdoor experience with 5-star service. Check out the description below for more information.
and sometimes you're out there working on your tackle and boat till 9, 10, 11 at night. And then you do this again and again and again for a multi-day tournament. He said it's nothing like that in professional hockey, even though it's grueling when you're practicing and when you're working out and when you're playing, you know, or practicing, yeah, working, you know, playing, whatever. Those are grueling because, you know, you're using every muscle in your body and you're working up a sweat and you're grinding. But he said, "You guys are just doing, you know, this constant sort of grind from when you wake up till you go to bed." And I never thought of it that way. And I'm not suggesting, I always tell people, you know, Columbia, I was once on their website listed under athletes, right? And,
Nice.
I've since fixed that, though. I've told people the truth. It's all natural. I don't work out. Okay. So there you go. So this bowling chin figure is natural. It's not, you know, I didn't plan it. Okay. Or work on it other than maybe way too many drive-throughs. So he put it in perspective from his way of looking at it, which I always thought that was a kind of a funny story hearing it from.
Dustin Bufflin said the same thing.
Did he really?
Yeah, on the podcast. But he'd sweeten the deal with his because he'd wear a 50-pound weighted vest when he's out fishing. But
Come on.
yeah, I fished a couple tournaments with him, and yeah, he says after he's like, it's exhausting. Like,
Isn't that funny? Eh? So he reiterated similar sort of story, but
yep.
50-pound weight. So if I put on, well, okay, let's say, okay, so I'm overweight now. So I'm going to take that overweight I'm wearing as a workout. Okay. That's it. That's
Yeah, I
oh,
like that.
yeah.
Whatever you gotta pull up the BMI, and whatever you're over the BMI is
No, no, no.
how much you're
I
lifting
don't
that
like
day.
that because there's obese, overweight, and normal, right? And
Yeah.
I'm really on the border of obese and overweight right in there. And I'm not going to tell you what side of that teeter-totter I'm on, but it's not pretty. And so I'm just like Buffalo. I've got something strapped onto me all the time. Unfortunately, I can't remove it as easy as a 50-pound vest.
Yeah. Well, that BMI is not fair either, because when you're tall, I could have the same boiler as anyone, and they could be labeled as obese, and all I do is take that boiler and lift it another foot off the ground, and you're good.
Yeah, I don't know. It's you know what though, that's interesting that Bufflin said that because I thought of it over the years, and every time I'd meet different hockey players and athletes that like to fish, I always try to compare what we do in tournaments to what they do and that. But I mean, those guys, and they're all different too. Some of them take it pretty far on what they eat and what they what they do for workouts and stuff, and then others are, I mean, I look at professional golfers and you see the John Daly's of the world, and then you see the guys that are very buffed, and you see two different complete animals there, right? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, it'd be like taking like a Brandon Palaniuk and like a Jonathan Taves,
yeah,
like two guys at the top of their game. Like they're both working as hard as they can possibly work already. So to
yep.
say one's harder than the other is not, is not even possible at that point.
But I will say though, in '95, I won the Angler of the Year for the GM Pro Bass Tour. I won the Classic that year, which was a Chevy truck and a Ranger boat, and then I won the Canadian Open that year, which was a Chevy, or not Chevy, but a Ranger. And then
Yeah.
the year before and the year after, I won the Canadian Open. So I won like 3 Rangers 3 years in a row for those 3 Canadian Opens. But during that '95, I grabbed a racing bike, a road bike, and I put on a ton of miles. Um, when I say a ton, not really that many, but enough that I felt really good. Got down in fighting weight into that normal weight and not
Mhm.
even overweight for a change, or the other obese. Hey, hey, they use it in those things too, right?
There's another level though. There's morbid obese. So I think as long
Oh,
as you stay away from that one, you're
I've not
good.
seen that one, but I don't like that obese word because I know what that is, because I know that category well. So anyway, got down to like 169, I think, or whatever that year in my weight, and hadn't been that weight for probably 15 years or 20 years, whatever. And I won everything I could in the Ontario tournaments down in this part of the world, right?
Yeah,
For
unreal.
the biggest tour we had, the GM Pro Bass Tour. And my mind, my body, everything was clicking that year.
Mhm.
The family was young, they were just little kids then and that, but I just, I don't know. I just, everything was working well. And it, there's truth to be said about, trying to keep your mind and body in good shape for these tournaments, because they are grueling. And if you get tired and make mistakes, just like any sport there is out there, that's when you could potentially not make the right move and falter. And in our world, it costs you money, in placings. And it's a fine line in bass tournaments with ounces. Um, can make or break you, whether you're making enough to pay for your trip and have a few bucks to spend, or coming back with zero, and it was a lot of money out of your own pocket to fish that week, right?
Yeah. No, you get like a butterfly effect. Like you said, if you would have been a couple ounces on the other side of other side of that cut line at that first derby in Florida, it could have totally flopped the whole season.
Well, that's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it, Jamie.
Well, you don't need excuses. You're a Canadian that went down in 2003.
Yeah, but
Like,
you know
what are you
what?
waiting for? Like a magazine to come out to learn about these lakes? Like, it was a near impossible task, and I feel like
Every
you
one of them I went to, I think, was the first time I'd been to any of those lakes in my life, and I didn't do any research. That's the other thing. I didn't do any research for any of them. you know, and I don't think the internet was happening then. So it was just like, I know it wasn't. So it was just, I went down there completely blind on all of them. And I wasn't, you know, the funny thing is, you know, everybody's that knows the TV show or any of the media stuff I do, they see me, you know, happy go lucky, like to laugh, have fun. But truth be known, I'm a bit of a loner. And so that year in those tournaments, and even to this day, I don't really go to the tournaments. You know, I should socialize more. I am now that I finally got some time to breathe. But for many years, I'd go to just compete in them. And, you know, and so I wasn't networking any. And networking is really important nowadays. If you don't have either a network of people or you don't research online for some of these events, especially on lakes you've never been to, rivers or reservoirs or whatever you're going to, like the knowledge is out there, at least to learn the basics of what you need to know. And then you've got to put the puzzle together when you get there. But I didn't do any of that in those early years. And I tried to just be a loner, being a Canadian down there. And I was, you know, the only Canadian in those early years, in the early 2000s on that trail. And I didn't know many of the guys. I knew a handful of the pros, you know, like Nixon and some of those guys, but not to the point where I was comparing notes with any of them. I just sort of did my own thing, you know. And you know, I think in life, you know, you kind of got to do what you want to do, and you know, you hope it's the right thing. And if you don't make a few mistakes here and there, or have some bad things, you'll never understand what a winner is, you know. And I tell people that, you know, it makes winning so much more sweeter when you have experienced those bad events, you know. I don't like thinking about those bad events very often. I always like to think of the good ones, but every now and then I go back in time and you know, try to analyze some of those events as years go by to see what I could have did differently, you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you must have been like one of the first Canadians to go down and try it, right? Like back then.
Yeah, well, you know,
Charles Sims, maybe.
For that circuit, the FLW tour, in those days, yeah. But even in the early 80s, my brother and I did a couple Bassmaster invitationals. And here's another one. I remember going down in early 80s, before I had a TV show, down to Kissimmee. So we would go to Kissimmee, and my brother, his wife, and I drove down. And I'll never forget, we get down there, and she was pregnant with Mariko at the time. And Wayne forgot her suitcase in the foyer of their house there, the front foyer. We get down there, and so we didn't want to take her shopping because we had to get out practicing really quick. And so we ended up, what did we do now? We down there, oh, I know, she was pregnant, so she needed underwear that were a little bigger around the waist. So I loaned her some of my underwear that I had in my suitcase. And she, you know, bless her, she was a real trooper. She still is, Jay. And so she practiced with us all 3 days and everything, and before the tournament. And you know, we finally got her to like a store or Walmart or somewhere so she could get some clothes. She ever mad at Wayne when we got to Florida, though, and he went to go get her suitcase and it wasn't there in the truck.
Oh, I could see it now. Yeah. Any situation like that. I bet you you remembered your tackle, or I bet you remembered your rods.
Yeah, but Jay's a pretty good person. She's you know, she's been on this program a long time around the fishing world. So, but anyway, that tournament, there's a case in point where it's a draw for partner. The invitational was then when you drew somebody, you could draw somebody from California or New York or whatever. So the last day of that tour, I was sitting really good. I was
both pros though, right?
Like yeah,
pro
so
and
you
pro.
Share the front of the boat, or one fish the back, one fish the front. And if you decided you could switch around and they could run your trolling motor, right?
Mm-hmm. Weird.
So I was young in my 20s, and I was doing really good the first 2 days. And I got on a pattern there where I was fishing the canal that goes out of Toho, and it goes down towards Kissimmee. I was fishing on the other side of the lock, and every time the lock would open, even though I was a few hundred yards down along the grass line, along the straight part of the canal, I'd flip my worm into the grass. And, with boat traffic going by and maybe the current come out of the lock, whatever, even the boat traffic, get the water moving, get the oxygen going, that would turn those fish on. They were so used to boat traffic and that. So I remember Basil Bacon, he was a pro from Missouri I knew, and he saw me, and I told him about my pattern the first day, and then the second day he was locking through and I was already fishing. And he roars his motor as he goes by me and slows down, speeds up, slows down, speeds up. Big wake, and that helped actually, right? I didn't get any bites right then, but he was laughing and waving because he knew it was the bite was influenced by boat traffic because some of those warm water places, they need the water stirred up, get the oxygen going, which is bizarre because most lakes that would spook the fish. But the last day I drew a Florida guide. This guy guided for a living, mostly shiner fishing, but did a little artificial fishing.
Yeah.
And he was bullheaded. And of course, I'm in my 20s and I'm sitting really good. After 2 days, I'm in the I'm guessing like it paid 40 some odd place or 40 places. And I'm guessing I was in the low 20s right then after 2 days, limit each day. And he doesn't want to lock through. He wants to fish on Toho. We run all over the place and fish all the spots where you shiner fish, and we don't get them fish. We don't get one bass, one keeper. Finally, the last hour and a half, hour and a half, I said, hey, I got to lock through and just try my water for a bit, and he finally agreed because, he was a guy that made a living guiding. So, I did trust him, but it didn't work out. That's fine. But I get there and I catch one fish, and then it's time to lock back through because I couldn't fish long. I only had about 20 minutes to fish because the problem is you got to get through the locks when you can get through the locks, right? Yeah. Caught one, but to this day, I know that I'm pretty sure I could have caught a limit if I spent my day on that side of the locks flipping a worm on there, a little black worm. But
still with Basil Bacon.
Yeah. Well, Basil would have run by me twice, probably going down to Kissimmee and back. So
sounds like a good guy to go for breakfast with.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, he was actually one of the original PR guys for Ranger boats, and also a pro. He won a few Bassmaster tournaments, and he was like in that crowd with Roland and Houston and all that crowd. But he was actually the pioneer of the flipping deck. He was the one that first came up with a higher deck in the bow of bass boats and a lower gunnel. The gunnels used to be like about this high on a standard Ranger, and then
with big rail too.
Yeah, that was him that designed all that. He actually made a flipping deck that folded, and it was a portable deck, but they outlawed it on the circuit after a year because they thought it was an unfair advantage if one guy was standing, a foot and a half or almost 2 feet higher than the other guys, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he had designed that. Roland had one and stuff. But yeah, so even that tournament there, though, it was momentum again. It was like I would have just loved to come out of that first invitational I fished in Florida with a check, but woe was me. I ended up not catching them, and that was that. But it's funny, these tournaments, US and Canada. Let me ask you a question. Do you find US waters more challenging than Canadian waters to fish?
Yeah. But like the thing is there's way more bass. Right. Here they're just easier to catch is kind of the general conclusion that I've come to.
Like you're talking, so these reservoirs that you've been to or some of the lakes, you think the population is more just because they're just fish factories?
Yeah, like Lake Hartwell. I was there in the fall for a Bassmaster tournament, and there were 40 to 60 bass on every cane pile. And there was a cane pile or two on every point and every turn and every piece of structure just along flat bank. Like there were more bass there than anywhere I've ever seen, in my entire life.
Exactly.
But you'd catch one out of a school of 40 and then they just would dissipate. But yeah, I mean, I've found it challenging. And you fishing around here is totally different than fishing around where you're at. There's a ton of rock. There's unlimited structure. It's just a totally different game.
It is. And it's, I always used to love coming up that Kenora Bass International tournament. It was so much fun. I mean, I remember having so much fun up there and getting a few top 10 finishes, but not never winning it. But I certainly had a lot of fun up there. But one thing I've noticed though, like you take your area up there, the population is pretty fragile, even though bass aren't the target fish for a lot of
Yep.
tourists and visiting or even local anglers. They probably prefer, walleyes number one, and then if they're hardcore musky guys, that's what they target, and so on and so forth, and that. But I'm sure there's not a lot of bass anglers in your part of the world that are non-tournament anglers. Most of them fish a few tournaments
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
But fragile. I mean, I remember year to year being so different at that Kenora Lake of the Woods tournament.
Yep.
One year it'd be out west, the largemouth would be dominating. And then, it'd be in that midsection of the lake for smallmouth and up around Kenora for smallmouth. And
yeah, it's still like that. You never know where it's going to be won. It can be won in any arm.
Well, I remember seeing Kessler there, and I always knew him as a walleye guy, but I knew he was really getting good at bass fishing. And it was funny because one of them in the boat would be fishing a spook, like a topwater bait, and the other would be, just dragging a bait back at the transom,
Yeah.
And talk about, playing the odds. One's going for a big topwater hit, and the other guy's just mopping up the area with a bottom bait, He had a good track record.
Yeah, he had good game plans. Him and Ted Stooner. It's funny. I was reflecting a little bit today. Sorry to cut off your story, but on the Tennessee River where the Bassmaster Classic is right now, I'd say there's a 1 in 3 chance that it's going to be won on that vertical moping technique. And that was really, I know the Linders had a hand in it too, but Kessler and Ted Stooner are, in this area, they've won more money on it than anyone. They refined it better than anyone. Ted figured out that Elaztec and Alex too. And that, I mean, it's crazy because it's, like I said, the Bassmaster Classic could go down on something a couple tiller guys figured out on Lake of the Woods 25 years ago.
Yeah, you mentioned Stooner, and that's who he fished with. I now you say that, I remember that. And of course, Ted is a crazy good angler as well. And and then you take Goozy in the mix there, and that whole crowd of guys are such good anglers and multi-species anglers. And you're right. I mean, and Stooner, I haven't talked to him lately, but pre-pandemic, I remember running into him down Sturgeon Bay, and he was doing real well down in where is it, Arizona, fishing bass tournaments.
Yeah, he was doing well there, and I talked to him on my way back from Alabama. He's down on Sam Rayburn all winter, catching their asses there.
Oh, he's doing well there. Good for him.
Yeah, he just hops around, and they were calling him Tiller Ted on Havasu. He was taking everyone's money, and he was beating them in pretty good.
Yeah, and some of the big pros were fishing in some of those opens that he was at, and I know he was kicking some butt down there and doing real well. And I was laughing because, to fit, is he still running a tiller, or is
no? He adapts better than anyone. He's live scoping. He's on the deck of a Ranger. He's all over. He's calling me a couple of years ago about wire size on the scope and about this and that. And I was bugging him because the first time I saw him standing up in a boat, I asked him if a bee bit him in the ass, because every other time he was sitting back at his graph. But no, he's up there. He's on 2 wheels.
That's funny. Well, I know he retired a few years back, and I imagine he's enjoying this retirement life. So good for him. And now Kessler's retired as well.
Yeah, he's been retired for a few years, and he's still winning. Both of them still winning tournaments.
Yeah, because I did a seminar with Alex there in Winnipeg when I was out there for the boat show a number of years ago, and we got to catch up on the good old days and everything, and it was really a lot of fun spending time with him. And I think it was him and his daughter were doing a seminar too there.
Yeah, Amanda, she's a really good angler.
Yeah,
she actually won a couple tournaments last year too.
Her
and her husband are hardcore. Yeah, you see them. They got the same boat as me. They've got a couple twins, and the twins are sitting in the back, and they're hardcore.
Oh, that's
the legacy lives.
That's the irony of, you take your region and you take, throw some of them Tobins in the mix there from Manitoba there. You take all these people we're talking about, and then there's a handful of other great anglers up there, like a couple armfuls actually. I think what has happened is, because you guys fish so many different species and so much different types of water. You got sand, you got rock, you got, bluffs, you got boulders, you got weeds, you've got everything up there, shallow, deep, in between. It's produced so many good anglers. And I've told people down here in Southern Ontario that for literally 30 plus years that there's so many good natural anglers from your region, because of the fact that you guys are so hardcore, and you've got structure type lakes that you can do it all. And like down here, it's funny, but we've got a lot of different water in Southern Ontario, from St. Clair, which is a big bowl, to Erie, to Simcoe, to the Thousand Islands, to all the back lakes and the northern lakes. But there's so much good water in each little region that some people don't move around much. So they're just really good at St. Clair or Erie or Nipissing or wherever it might be. And there's good anglers that can fish all those types of waters too. But then there's also specialists that are just good in certain types of water. Whereas in your area, it seems like everybody's gotten good at catching fish, with a variety of techniques, both shallow and deep, up your area, which I found there's more versatile anglers up your way than there is here, even though we got some great anglers. I just think that the fact that you guys, are fishing a lot of species and a lot of water that's so widely different, clear water, colored water. Yeah, it's just crazy. I always wondered how walleye guys like Kessler and Goozy and Stooner and all those guys could adapt to bass so quick, but they did.
Yeah.
In the heyday, they switched over, and it wasn't that hard for them, even though completely different game they're going after, and different water columns they're fishing. I mean, you certainly don't use topwater lures for walleye, but they mixed it into their menu,
Yeah. Oh, you're good on your graphs. You're good on your graphs. Doesn't matter if it's a trout. That's what I tell people about ice fishing. They're like, well, how could you even dream at competing with, someone who's on a boat 12 months out of the year? And it's like, well, you might be sitting in an ice shack in the winter staring at your graph or your forward facing sonar, but you get to see things when you're just sitting there without a moving boat that, untrained eyes might not pick up on, or you get that one-on-one interaction with a fish more than you would in a boat. So even though they're different species, you can see how they react and learn a couple tricks and methods and drop speed and things like that. That's what I tell myself to make me feel better anyway, before I get my ass kicked.
You're bang on. It's so true. And nowadays, with forward facing sonar and 360 and downscan, everything that we've got available to us as tournament anglers or just recreational fishermen too. Electronics are such an important role. And I was talking to a chiropractor last year. Him and his dad won a day of fishing with me through a tire discounter group where I do some promotional work with Firestone tires, and this young guy who fished and golfed, I said, hey, a good article for you to do down the road would be the effects of looking down at your screen in a boat when you're standing up, and what it'll do to your neck and that, and what kind of exercises and maybe something you could prevent that. What should you do when you're not fishing? Because there's so many folks that are locked on their screen now in tournament fishing and recreational fishing. And if you're standing and you're looking down all the time, it's got to be hard in your posture, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you feel it. I've adapted a whole, there's a 12-minute, it's called the Personal Foundation workout that I had never heard of before forward facing sonar came out. Now I have to do it at every tournament.
Yeah. Well, if you don't, you're going to get a lot of weird things, I think, happening in your neck and back and stuff that probably your body's not used to, and I don't know. I mean, I try to look around a lot too, and probably my biggest fault is not staring at the screen all the time when I should be.
Right.
My ADD sets in, and that I'm looking around at the boat going by and the birds flying and whatever. But there's no quite, and especially if I'm in shallow clear water, I'm using my eyes more. But obviously you should be using a forward-facing sonar too for, if there's glare on the water, it could be picking up fish that you're not seeing with your eyes, and that you could catch it a lot easier before you get over top of them, right? So yeah, it's changed the game, that's for sure, and it's gonna get better and better. I believe all these companies are working on the next version to up themselves with the competition, and they're all pretty good right now from what I've been hearing. Every manufacturer's got pretty good units out there. Some have better than others in some things, yet that one's better in something else. And I've been hearing all these comparisons. I'm not sure who to believe, whether it's a guy running this unit or that unit or whatever. You just got to run with whatever you're running and hope you know how to use it properly. Right?
Yeah. I mean,
the only ones you can believe are ones that got, say 3 manufacturers on their boat. They've used them all a lot, right?
Yeah, well, you see a lot of them just stick with a few different, like I have a couple different types of graphs in mine, and like lots of people just do that now.
Yeah, and you're using one for forward imaging and one for more mapping or whatever, right? Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm loving it though. But I'll tell you, keeping up with this technology, it's interesting because I like fishing shallow water, and I like weeds, not big deal. Most of the lakes I go to now, that's not even a player, even if they have that.
Yeah.
Open water fishing fish that you're seeing on your graph or suspended out from the boat, whatever. So but I did make a good living in the early years in shallow weeds when nobody knew how to flip and pitch. And I remember being in Kentucky back in the late 70s, around 78 I think it was. I was down in Kentucky at this tackle store, and Fred, what was his name? Fred Green, I think it was. He owned the tackle store, and he had a flipping rod, a Fenwick flipping rod, and I bought my first one down there. But he taught me in his tackle store how to flip, and that was before pitching. But the pitching evolved, but flipping with stripping line off.
Yeah, the old school.
And I brought it back to Rondo Bay in southwest Ontario where I lived, and I remember jumping in that 17-foot glass drawn or 15-foot glass drawn that we had with the 85, and I went to this old stone foundation that I knew always had a bass, and you could always throw a crankbait and catch 1, 2, 3, 4 bass off it. They'd school up. Sometimes there'd be one, sometimes there'd be a little wolf pack of them on the stone foundation that was flooded on the corner of a sandbar. And it was just, some old rock from the corner of a shack or house or whatever was there years ago. And so I thought, well, there's got to be a bass there. There always is when you crank it. And it was only in about 3 feet of water, and then it dropped in about 8 feet in front. So I went up to it, and I got the boat positioned. I was probably about, I don't know, maybe 8 feet away from it. And I just sort of did a half flip and let the jig sink down beside it, and all of a sudden the line starts going sideways, and I tighten up, set the hook, and it's like a 3-pound largemouth or so. And that was my first flipping bass with that technique. And just catching that fish, just all of a sudden with a short line, go, okay, this is cool. I know how to do this. I'm gonna practice and get better. And Wayne and I went on to win so many tournaments in the early 80s and that on flipping. We won Pigeon Lake, the Holland River on Lake Simcoe, Scugog, Belleville, Bay of Quinte, on and on. We won so many tournaments flipping and pitching because nobody else was doing it.
Yeah, and that's probably got you on that constant hunt for the edge. Well, like you still haven't stopped because you saw how beneficial it can be.
They were untouched on undercut banks and in little reed clumps and in floating weed mats. They were untouched fish. And so that happened for, I don't know, maybe 3 years or so. And
where now you would get away with it for like 1 tournament or 2 tournaments and everyone would be on it.
Yeah.
Back then you could ride that wave a little bit. I guess
Yeah,
if you were
because,
sneaky enough, but you had a
well,
TV show too.
and I heard Kessler talk about that, and he was talking about sneaky and using the buoy marker with the short line that drifted off. Well, I used to always throw buoy marker out on offshore stuff before GPSs, but I'd line it up with something I could see, like a barn or cottage on the shore or a tall tree. And if I was catching fish here, I would line it up, and then about 80 yards away, I would put my buoy marker on nothing.
Yeah, nice.
And so, my brother Wayne would pull up beside me in a tournament, and I'd be, smallmouth fishing. He'd see that buoy out there, but I'd be off it, right? And he'd see that buoy, and I'd see him idle, and then all of a sudden he'd go right to the buoy and start fishing. And then if it was calm and, I could hear him, he'd yell over it, "Man, I ain't catching anything over here. What'd you mark here?" I said, "Oh, they got to be there somewhere." I'd be sitting on the juice over here, but I wouldn't tell them that. I did that for a few tournaments just for fun. And hey, what are brothers for, right?
Yeah, you got to throw some sneak in there. I remember Troy Norman at Sturgeon Bay. Actually, you'll like this. He told me, I went there quite a few years after the Marabou heyday, but he said in the true heyday of it, he said every boat that would drive by, he would just start working his Marabou like a jerk bait all the way back to the boat.
Well, you know what? Hey, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus tonight, but you know what? I could see him doing that very easily.
Oh yeah.
And knowing him and that partner he probably started stroking bass doing that too. They wanted an erratic movement.
Yeah. I throw it in there lots too. That was a good trick.
Yeah, it's so funny. I mean, how many times have you been practicing before a boat comes by? And I'll tell you a funny story. This happened on Rice Lake. I mean, back in the 80s too, but I fished a weed line for largemouth. It was the day before the tournament. And buddy of mine, I'm not gonna say his name now because I never told him this. Well, he saw it, but I'm not gonna throw him under the bus. But anyway, he pulls up beside me and starts working toward me, and all of a sudden I feel a hit. And he starts talking as he's electricking towards me, and so I hit the free spool button. And I don't set or nothing. And as he's talking, about a minute later, a 4.5-pound largemouth comes jumping about 3 feet in the air right beside his boat. And he's about 35 yards away from me. And I've been free spooling. This thing's going through the weeds. And then finally it hooks itself and it jumps out of the water. He goes, "Is that your fish?" And I sheepishly tightened up and reeled in and said, "Yeah." But I didn't want him knowing I was getting bit on this weed line, right? But you got to do what you got to do. I mean, I remember flipping in the early years in reeds. Every time I'd see a boat go by, I'd lay down on the bottom of the boat real quick so they couldn't see you. You'd be up in the cattails, right?
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah, because they're high cattails, and you just lay down for a second, they drive by, And but see, in the early years of
you got some sneak in your pocket then.
Well, in the early years of tournaments, when we were winning a lot of them, I'll tell you what used to happen. We used to get people following us, and people that would be in the tournament. But after day one, if you're leading it, they would sneakily follow you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at Long Point at one tournament, Wayne and I won, and it was a decent one. It was like 10 grand for first, and we got onto a good buzzbait pattern for largemouth. And first day we were leading. Second day we're running in the inner bay, and I see a boat that's like about a half a mile out, but it's running parallel to us. And I go, "Why are they kind of running out there, but the same direction?" I don't like it, because we had quite a run to go, but we had it all to ourselves, right, where we were catching them. So I deked into Turkey Point in the pencil reeds, which was, not, probably about 3 miles into our probably 15-mile trip. And we take it off plane in the pencil reeds. And I see this boat do this huge Yui, and it pulls in like 40 yards in front of us in the pencil reeds, like a big Yui in a circle back. And I'm like, man, this isn't even where I want to fish, but I just wanted to deke them out, right?
Yeah.
And they're cutting us off. It's not even where I want to fish. So I pick up my buzzbait rod that I was going to actually fish in the spot we had caught him the day before. I throw out a cast, and sure enough, I get an explosion and miss the fish, right? And I don't even throw another cast. I put the rod down quick. I hadn't even put the trolling motor down yet. If Wayne was driving or I was driving in those team turns those early years, and I was a lot better shape back then. And Wayne's always been in shape, even at his age, 9 years older than me. He still cuts firewood and is very, very fit for his age, super fit. We'd run to the front of the boat before it was off plane. Like we'd be like this, and one of us be in the bow of the boat throwing a cast. Well, anyway, those guys got their life jackets off, and as soon as they got their trolling motor in, I jumped down the driver's seat. I had my life jacket still on. I said, Wayne, hold on, and I planed it out of there as quick as I could. And they were too embarrassed to follow us at that point. And the guy comes up to won the tournament, right? And this guy comes up to me, and I definitely am not going to say his name because he's still alive now. And he shakes my hand and congratulates us for winning and all that. And he says, I can't believe you found that spot. I said, what spot? Where you started this morning. I mean, I just can't believe you found that spot too. And I'm like, I threw like one cast and we left. What are you talking about? But he was very good at not telling the truth. That's all I'll say. But he was so phony when he was congratulating me and telling me that I'd found the same spot as him when we didn't catch any fish there. It wasn't even where I wanted to stop. I was just deking him out. But anyway, it was, there's the odd guy like that in tournaments, but
how do you roll into a tournament morning and like that's your ace in the hole? We're gonna follow Bob and Wayne.
Yeah,
I'll fish them on their own spots.
Hey, believe me, after some bad years, that following never happened as much anymore.
You shook the bogey.
Yeah, the funny thing is when you're winning, everybody thinks something's weird going on, or you're secretive, or you got something that's top secret or whatever. But yeah, we used to get a lot of that in the early years of that, but not as much now. It's and one of my deals right from the start was outrun everybody. So in these Great Lakes tournaments, if I had to run 130 miles one way, I would to fish.
Unreal.
And that was just a strategy that worked some tournaments. Some it didn't, because you didn't have a lot of time if it's 5 and 6 foot waves and you had to run. Like I remember one tournament, and I said to Darren on the St. Lawrence River, we were running 90 miles to the mouth, and then we had to run out in the lake to fish.
Yeah.
And we got so far, and it was an east wind, and they were really close.
Where'd you take off out of? Sorry.
Morrisburg. It's
so
right
way
across
up there.
Yeah, it's right across from where the U.S. tournaments are, not Messina.
Washington?
Yes.
Oh, it's 90 miles to that mouth, huh?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So
okay,
we only got about 50 miles into the trip. And I looked at my watch and I said, Darren, there is no way we're even going to get to Lake Ontario, gas up, and be able to get back in time with no fishing. So I veered off. I looked at my GPS and I see this creek, and I thought, it was raining. It was an east wind, about 25, 30 mile an hour, and it's going against the current. The waves are tight and they're breaking and we're pounding away. And I said, Darren, I left a spare set of keys in my gas cap there in the truck, and I'm going to phone. If you know what, let's deke in here. I've never even been here in my life and see what's going on. But we're soaked and everything. Yeah. And I said, maybe I'll phone one of the tournament officials and I'll pay him to bring our truck and that'll put us 50 miles closer. And this is the Classic, right? The last day of the Renegade Classic. And I pull in there and bang, catch decent fish, and then catch another one, and then pull up on a dock, and I get one that's just a hair under 6, and Darren gets a 4 at the same time on either side of the dock. And we come in with a big limit that day and came from like 14th place to 3rd, I think it was, in the tournament. But I'll tell you, the crazy thing is the first day I got stuck in largemouth in the river, and I was planning on going to the lake, and it was flat calm the first day of the Classic, 2-day Classic. And had I gone to the lake, I know I could easily put an 18 to 20 pound bag together, which is all we would have needed the first day. And I got stuck on largemouth too long, and we had like 14 pounds and change, and we're sitting like 14th or whatever the first day. But I said to Darren at 10 to 11 in the morning, I said, let's make the run. So we made the run to Lake Ontario, but we had to gas up in Kingston because what I had to do is I was going to gas up in Kingston, go fish the lake, gas up again to make the 90-mile run back from the mouth. We gas up, and I look at my watch and I say, man, we got 20 minutes to fish. We don't even have time to run anywhere on the lake I want to fish. So I went to one spot. I caught a goby about this big, a smallmouth about this big, and we made the run 90 miles back. And had actually it was probably 12, 15 minutes we fished. We made the run back and got back in with about 10 minutes to spare. So I could have actually fished longer, but you don't know when you're making 90 miles, but the boat traffic's going to be in the boat wakes and stuff, right? It's pretty hairy on a weekend run. But I kick myself to this day because I had some patterns going on out in the lake nobody was doing back then. And I think a few years after that, I won that EverStart tournament out of New York there and won a boat and some good catch. And then the next year I got second, but I should have won it, but I was too nice a guy and blew that tournament by being a little generous. And you know, when you got a co-angler in the boat, I don't like to see co-anglers come in with nothing, right? And I drew a guy the next year who guided with live bait out of Clayton, New York, and a nice guy. And he said, Bob, I can't come in with, you know, like I came in last year and I didn't have a limit one day as a non-boater, as a co-angler. I said, I'll look after you. Don't worry about it. So this is when the Gulp Fry had just come out. Berkeley had it. And you know, it wasn't a secret, but we weren't telling everybody, but a lot of guys knew about it. He didn't have any Gulp Fry, so I gave him some Gulp Fry. And I've got like 20 pounds in the box already, maybe 20 and a half. And I'm culling, and he's got like one or two small fish in the box. And I look at my graph on the front of the boat, and there's this great big hook, and there's no wind. And I said, reel up real quick. We're in like 34 feet of water. And I said, throw up my trolling motor and just open your bail, let it go right down. And I'm culling, and then he sets the hook, and I net him a fish. It's like a 5.5. And I don't have anything over 4, and maybe 1 4.5, and the others are like 4, you know, 4 pounds, 4 1/4, 4.2, whatever. Then I get another fish, and it's another clone, and I'm culling it. And I look at my graph, and I said, reel up, throw up my trolling motor. He throws. He gets another one just under 5. Either of those fish would have won the tournament for me.
Oh boy.
I told him to reel up and throw up my trolling motor. And to this day, do I have any regrets? Not really. He ended up having a good showing. He had a good bag at the end of the day. But I think I weighed like 21 and something. But either of those fish would have boosted me up, because I think I only lost by, I don't know, 4 ounces or something, or I don't know, half pound, or I don't know what it was, but I lost.
That's a tough one to take. Gussie told me before I went last year, he's like, no matter how nice they are, and no matter how nice you are and how much you want to help, he's like, do not. He's like, he had been burned so many times, you know, inadvertently. He's like, you just can't give him a bait, and you can't give him the primo cast. Like, don't block them to where they can't fish, but he's like, if you like, you have to.
Well, the thing is, a lot of these co-anglers are great anglers. They're very good anglers. They just opted to not fish in a boat, or for whatever reason, or maybe financially, or just they want to fish as a non-boater. The problem is, you know, we're paying a higher entry fee to fish in the front of the boat than they are in the back, right? Even though they've got nice money they can win. But you know, we've got the expense of practicing and towing a boat and boat cast and all that. And a lot of work goes into it. And then all of a sudden, you know, they're in the boat. And you know, I've had some, like, I remember one of the tournaments on Thousand Islands, I drew a guy that actually became pretty good friends with him, and Pennsylvania guy. And gosh, he had a 5 something, a 6 something. And I don't know, I think he had 22 or 24 pounds, and I had 18 pounds that day. And, you know, when a guy's got like 4 or 6 pounds more than you for the back.
Burning you up.
But he was just a good stick too,
Yeah.
right? He was a hardcore good stick, and wasn't like I gave him anything. He caught him, you know what I mean? So he just outfished me, period, without me really helping him, other than I took him to the areas. But I didn't say, cast him my trolling motor or something, or cast at that boulder. He was just catching them. But we've all been there and had that done, or sooner or later, if you haven't, it will happen where the co-angler. Of course, what have you guys got, a smaller limit for the guy in the back of the boat?
Yeah, they can only catch 3, so it's a little bit better, and it's better for people watching you too, because you have to do a bunch of math to figure out how bad they beat you if they beat you. It's
Yeah.
not a direct comparison, but yeah,
Well,
it's a
yeah,
different
because
deal.
for the average person, it looks like, oh wow, they had 8 pounds in the back of the boat, and yeah, he
Yeah.
had 16. He
Yeah,
really,
you whipped them. Or they had 12 and you had 13.
yeah. I
But
still beat him. But if people knew the real truth, and I wish
yeah,
they had that, in some of the other series, because it would have made a huge difference. You know, it, I think in some of the events. But you know what? I've always liked seeing my co-anglers catch them, and I don't know. I don't think I've changed in that either. I like
yeah,
seeing them have a good time in that. Now, um, having said that, it's cost me some money, but hey, it is what
yeah,
it is. But in that tournament, it did hurt me on that one, because it would have been the difference between, I'm going to guess, 15 grand or 18 grand or whatever second was. I don't even know what it was, instead of a fully rigged Ranger boat and like 30 grand US, So
right.
it was
That's
a big
big.
difference. So that was a bit of a dumb move on my part, because he might end up cashing a check for, I don't know, maybe $800, right? For the fish that he did catch with me to move him up in the standings. Because I don't think he had that good of a first and second day. But
Yeah.
but
No, I
anyway,
get it. My first guy I had my first Bassmaster. Like, I didn't know how the process worked or anything like that. So he was like coaching me through it. He's a real nice guy. I've had mostly positive experiences with all my co-anglers. And I wasn't catching very many fish. I was catching them on the Smeltinator and 5-inch fluke, like the standard. And he was kind of asking about the bait. He never asked for one. I wanted to give him one so bad, but I was like, no, I can't do it. So at the end of the day, I was like, here, bud. And I broke the bait off my line and gave him that jig head and jerk shad. And I went into the boat and got him a couple more. Well, one of my travel partners for that tournament, Austin Felix, he was doing the same thing as me. So he drew this co-angler the second day, and I ended up costing him money. The co-angler ended up getting a check. He had caught just enough with me, and then he had a really good day with Austin, but he definitely caught some that Austin would have caught.
hey,
And Austin missed the money by 3 spots or whatever. So
is that right? So had
I
he
came out smelling like a rose after that
and he
one.
was doing the same thing.
Yeah,
That's pretty wild. What lake was that?
that was on Cherokee.
Cherokee, eh? Well, that is
Yeah,
funny. It's amazing though. Like, some co-anglers I've drawn over the years are so dialed in, and they're so good. And I actually have drawn some co-anglers I know are much better anglers than me, that should be in the front of the boat, but they opt not to, and they're machines, and a lot of the pros that actually are competing now, like Brian Thrift used to be a co-angler, right?
yeah. Jordan Lee. Jordan
Yeah,
Lee fished in the back of Gussie's boat. I think it
right.
was first down at that Florida one you guys were
Well,
at.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
No
yeah.
kid.
Because he pulled up. I went to Gunnersville with my wife like a few years later, and I had one of Gussie's old boats, and Jordan Lee pulled up to us, and he thought I was Gussie because he had
No.
fished in the back of his boat.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
So I was
him,
watching.
Justin Lucas too.
Oh, he was co-angler as well.
Yep.
So I was watching a little bit of MLF today, and I believe it's on Cherokee.
It goes to Cherokee tomorrow. They've been on Douglas beside it.
Okay, Douglas then.
Yeah.
And I saw Jordan Lee, and I was laughing because I was on a conference call, but I was watching on another screen, and he had a hat that he must have, I don't know if he bought it or had it custom made, and I don't think tourism from that county in Tennessee would like it. This lake
Sucks.
you see that?
Oh yeah. I was gonna buy he sells them on his website, jlee.com if you want one. I
I
was gonna
didn't
buy one for one of my travel partners, because
no
he's always
way.
chirping the lake,
I
but they
even
were all
like
out of
I
stock.
even like the crappiest lakes out there, Jamie, just so you know. I don't mind tough fisheries. I like them, if weights are down, it's even sometimes, not easier, but it might be a little beneficial,
Yeah.
if you don't know the water, if it's a tough fishery. But I laughed. I didn't know that had existed. And I was
Yeah.
laughing
It's a
thinking,
Chamber of Commerce worst nightmare.
oh yeah, I can't imagine. I don't think they're going to be giving him a key to the city.
No, he's not going to dinner with the mayor.
I don't think so. That was awesome though. I saw that. I
Oh, that's
I,
funny.
I had to look at it about 3 times because he kept turning around, because I kept seeing the word flex. And I go, no, that can't be. It must be like a name of a bait company or something, right? And then finally I caught it when he was talking to the camera, and I go, what the heck?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I can't wait to tune in and watch that tomorrow. I'm looking forward to that. That one's circled because it's cold enough. They'll probably be doing the Kessler Stooner out there on Cherokee.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Is the water? I didn't see enough of. Is the water temp still pretty cold down that way?
Yeah, yeah. There was like a fall spring, like everything heated up and then it just cooled right off. So that falls right into like Gussie's wheelhouse for the classic, and like
I hope so.
could be a good week for Canada. Coop and the
It'll
Johnstons
be
too.
it'll be interesting to see how many largemouth are moving towards the bank, though. Um, like, is it? You say it's in the 50s?
It might be cooler than that. It had
Oh,
warmed up significantly, like, they had a freak spring for how warm it was, and then everything just, like, it was below freezing temperatures for a few days and things like that, so
well, hopefully it's not
probably
too
low
muddy
50s.
for those smallmouth to be a player. And
Yeah, that'll be a
Cooper
good watch.
Cooper's very good with his electronics too, and the Johnson boys are no slouches with anything you throw at them. So
Yep.
I predict that we're going to see one, two. I think two Canadians are going to fare pretty good in the Classic, and I mean the odds of all four of them being in the top 10 are pretty astronomical. But because you got some really good anglers in that field, a lot of good
Yeah.
young anglers that are really good. But it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to watch it all. It's I know a lot of guys from this area, guys and girls, have gone down or are going this week. And I had one guy just bugging me yesterday saying, come with me. He says, we'll fly down and then we'll drive back with so-and-so. And I said, I can't go because I finally am back. I got to get some work done. I'm still rigging boats and working on stuff and that. But anyway, yeah, a lot of Canadians will be down at the Classic cheerleading the boys there. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, there's a whole mix of Australians in there too, because it's Carl Jochimson's first Classic,
Oh,
so
wow.
there's a whole crew. One of them that is coming over actually bought a car to live in here, and he's gonna do a bunch of opens, as a co-angler
He's
just
going
to
to live in his
sample it.
car?
He's gonna live in his car, so I was like, "Well, man, if I have room, like, you can hop in." Like, Gussie put me in touch with him. I was like, "You can hop in with us, and you can pre-fish with me and whatever," but he'll have some good stories. He's never seen a bass before.
Oh, that's funny. Live in his car. Well, hey, I was there when I was starting out. If I didn't win enough money, to get a hotel the one tournament, then hey, if it was sleep in my car for that event, I would. But I didn't like to. But that's what happens sometimes in those early years of fishing for a living. But
Hell, I'm 33. I still sleep in my truck from time to time.
well,
It's
I'm gonna be honest with you, Jamie. I like pillow top mattresses. I like comfort right now. Okay, at my age, so if I can afford a hotel with pillow top mattresses now, I kind of err towards that with nice soft pillows. But hey, been there, done that before in the early years, and that's the way it was. But I just find that a good night's sleep it's hard, but you take. Rick Clunn used to camp at tournaments for years, right?
yeah, Cooper still does.
Climate,
Cooper loves it.
yeah, get in tune with the climate, and then look at Cooper. Him and Danny McGarry used to sleep in the back of that little truck, and I'll never forget running into them at the one tournament in Quinny, and they've had a very good track record, that Quinny Cup that they ended up winning their. maybe twice they won it, I think. But anyway, here's the funny thing is they'd sleep in this little truck. It wasn't even a full-size pickup. And Danny's telling me, "Oh, it stinks in there. It got so hot last night." And I said, "Oh, yeah." And I said, "Pretty tight quarters." "Yeah, but Coop's mom put this blanket in there and it's the dog uses it." So as it got hot, all the smell of the dog come out of the blanket. And we're in this little camper, not camper, it's a cap on a little pickup. And he had tackle storage underneath, and the two of them would have to sleep about this close together in the back of the truck, right? And they were parked in the grocery store parking lot. And I was, being sarcastic and trying to be funny at the same time. But I said, "Hey, maybe I can go over there and befriend the manager of the grocery store where you guys are staying and see if you can plug in there and use their hydro, because I think they're using a generator or something. But maybe you can plug in and maybe they'll let you get some of the day-old food coming up."
Just peasants, eh?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, I remember Andy Apleta and his family ran the tournament. They had ordered all this chicken from this local fried chicken restaurant that was there. It had really good chicken, and there was all this leftover chicken. And I remember the boys got a whole pile of that from Andy, and that's what they lived on for the weekend for the tournament, was this fried chicken from the Friday night meeting, right?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
They're hard. Two of the most hardcore guys I've ever met. Danny's actually gonna, I think we might be staying together at St. Lawrence.
Oh, they're good. They're good kids. They're good guys, and
yeah. Coop stopped by down in Alabama. Both of them wheeled by the house for a couple beers on the wind day, and it's nice to have them boys down there.
Yeah, they're just good people and very driven, and they're fish heads, like all of us. So I think Danny, I was sad to see Danny didn't fare well at that first one. I think, did he?
He had a good he saved his ass because he was he was damn near in last place. And if you're under 175 out of the 225, you get 0 points.
Did he get any?
He moved up from 215 to 150th or whatever. So at least got some points,
And he's doing all of them too, right?
He's doing all of them too, yeah.
Yeah, because I talked to him briefly at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show about a month ago or whatever. And I didn't get a chance because it was loud at the after party there. So I didn't get a chance to talk to him too much in that with music playing because there's karaoke and stuff. But I thought he was doing them all. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And you guys the only two Canadians doing them all?
No, there's 5 of them. There's 5 of us.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Ryan Clark, Evan Kung, and Paul Bouvier.
Oh yeah.
Saying that right?
Yeah, I think he fished Renegade, I think.
Yeah, we all suck. None of them got a limit both days at Eufaula.
Well, we got to get Canada a better showing at the next. What's the next one coming up?
Next one's Toledo Bend.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and when is that?
April 15th.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. A lot goes on in that lake. I fished it in the 70s. So this is how crazy it was. In 1977, my brother, his wife, and I drove down there, got a guide, and we fished one day on Toledo Bend. And I'll never forget walking out the dock, and Tommy Martin, who won one of the early Bassmasters Classics in the 70s, was walking out to his, I think he was a skeeter guy or a basket guy back then, but he was walking out to his bass boat at the end of the dock with decoys. Him and another guy were going duck hunting at first light that morning. And I was all excited as a teenager. I mean, I was, my early, what was I back then? I don't know, 18 years old maybe or whatever. And I was excited because I knew who he was and everything, and got to say hi to him and that. And because the guide told me who it was, and I knew him from Bassmaster magazines, right? So here he is, going duck hunting in a bass boat, and I'd never seen that before. I said, "Oh wow, I should do that with my bass boat when I get back home." I didn't take a boat back then because I didn't have a vehicle that'd be good enough to tow it all the way to Texas. So we just, Wayne and I got a guide, and we caught some bass and that, but it was all offshore, flooded timber fishing back then.
Yeah, I don't think a whole hell of a lot's changed there.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. It'd be interesting to see if the forward imaging plays a big part, if the fish are around the trees, or you might be right when they're up spawning, right?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll still. It sounds like we might be kind of at the tail end of that. I'm sure they'll be. I'll be looking offshore. I'll tell you that. There's no way I'm going to compete with one of those guys on the bank on a better. So
No, and the banks get beaten on almost every lake, and the odds are better if you find the right fish offshore. So many lakes now with the technology, but it's funny. I'm hoping so many guys get into this offshore fishing that'll give me some shoreline I can go back to and relive some of the old days. But
yeah, well, that's what someone asked John Cox, and he's like, "Well, no, because by the time they get there, they're all beat up anyway from everyone cracking them on their way in and then on their way out." So
yeah, yeah, it's funny, eh? What a guy to make a good living fishing shorelines, eh?
oh, incredible,
Yeah, and
incredible to
it,
follow.
it'll be interesting to see how that evolves, and if that changes as he gets more company back. Hard to say though. There's a lot happening in the world of fishing with forward technology and trends, but everything seems to go full circle some way, shape, or form. But I'm not sure about that though. I don't know because bank fishing is just so limited sometimes, right? And
Yeah,
to win a tournament on a bank is so hard to do.
you need a few miles of it, I think.
Yeah, and I could do it in the early years, but I have proven to myself that bank beating, even in these Southern Ontario tournaments, is not going to win you any tournaments, or very few.
No,
Um,
no, I
uh,
think that's being accepted now. Mind you, Fighter won AOI on the bank.
right,
He didn't
right.
win a single tournament, but he won the overall, which was, I mean, they say that's the hardest thing to win in fishing. I would agree with that. Bassmaster AOI.
Yeah, we won the Quinny Cup. I don't know, maybe 5 years ago. I'm guessing thereabouts. And we were primarily fishing the bank, but and just to tell you, in 5 or 6 years, how it's changed. The Quinny Cup last year, we were the biggest weight of largemouth. I think we were like seventh place or something
Right.
with about 30, maybe 32 or 34 pounds. I can't remember. But then every weight above us was smallmouth for the most part.
Yeah. Everything's got to go perfect for you just to be in the top 5 or
And
top 10. And
yeah,
yeah,
and
I know the feeling.
all those guys fishing smallmouth, most of it was forward imaging.
Yeah.
And we were beating the bank, reliving memories and just wishing and hoping. But it taught me something. I mean, I'm a little slow at times, Jamie, but I will say when I find out, and that's one thing I've always done at tournaments too, is I've tried to stick around for the weigh-ins, and I try to stick around and talk to folks after, because if I can glean, I don't care about location. I don't
Hmm.
want GPS spots or any of that, but I just want to know, how did they beat us? Did they fish shallow? Did they fish deep? Did they fish rocks? They fish weeds? They fish transitions, bottom change? What depths did they fish? That's all I want to know. I don't care where, because that's their spots, but I do want to know what type of water was fished to beat us, and fifth and sixth and fourth and third. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah. I
it's
hear you. Well, it's
yeah,
accessible now. You can just go online and watch everyone whip you if you're
Yeah,
fishing
pretty
in
much.
Big
I used
Derby.
to have to get a scalpel out and perform lobotomies on people, and everybody said I was really good at it, but I was so tired after those tournaments, and most of my buddies just hopped in their vehicle and left, right? But I'd
Yeah.
stick around till the last man was standing at those tournaments, just to find out what did I do wrong and what they do right, and you're always learning, right? So,
Yeah. That's committed to the cause, Bob.
well,
Um,
no, that's just trying to get it, because as much as we take in, there's always mistakes we're gonna make, but it's just trying to have enough up here to make those right decisions. But anyway, it'll be fun this year. I really do hope, though, Jamie, you have a great season on the Opens. Okay, I'll be watching. Okay,
okay, I appreciate that. That's
I'm
a
gonna
bunch of extra pressure. I liked it better
okay,
when I
but
didn't know you were watching.
just so you know, for you, I'm going to do this. If I happen to not see who's doing well the day one or day two or that, if I only catch the last day standings, if I'm on the road fishing another tournament or whatever, I'm not going to start at the bottom. I'm going to start at the top and look for your name and work my way down. Okay.
Okay, that's saying a lot.
Yeah, because I do have friends and acquaintances that I know if they're in tournaments, I automatically go to the bottom and look for them. And
It's all about efficiency.
I know you're a better angler than that, so I don't have to look at the bottom. Okay.
Well, hopefully it doesn't cost you too much extra time this year.
I don't want to have to go through 4 pages to find you. Okay.
Bob, can't thank you enough for coming on. I've got you over 2 hours now. This is the longest podcast we've ever done. I'm sure we could go another 2 hours, but you got to get to bed. You're in Eastern time. It's getting late there.
Hey, listen, we got to go for, let's next time try for the longest fishing podcast ever. I want to see how many people we can put to sleep. Okay.
Yeah, Jim Moyna's got a thing on YouTube where he just tells stories that literally to put people to sleep. That's the title.
Okay.
So we can't cut his grass.
See, it's been there, done that. You know, that's
it's already a thing. No edge there.
Think of a fishing, somebody's already thought of. But I wish you all the best. Okay.
I appreciate it, pal. Lots of long road trips coming up. If you have any, give me a shout anytime. I'm sure we could fill some airspace. But thanks again, bud. Wish you all the best.
Thanks.
Take care.